Okay, next up is Chetankumar Malepati from AbbVie. He is the Director of IT Operations and Product Development and External Contract Manufacturing. His passion is in driving innovation to increase speed to market of biopharmaceutical products. 17 years of diversified experience in the pharmaceutical business, including, this is a long list, lab automation, data science, AI, data integrity, which we just heard about, quality control, quality assurance, process improvements, product stability, R&D, and business intelligence. He leads a group of chemical engineers, scientists, developers, data engineers, and data scientists. But in his heart, he is purely a scientist. So I'm welcoming him today to talk about intelligent parsing of historical batch records. Thanks, Chetan.
Hello, everybody. Good. You can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay, good.
Hi, my name is Chetan. As Margaret mentioned, you can go by Chet if you feel uncomfortable with it. But I've been in the industry for a while, looking in different areas like Sachin mentioned around. I started in QC, learned a lot of pain points around paper, still being around paper. And then I shifted my interests up the food chain in the product development life cycle, and then see if we can avoid more paper in the early stages so that QC can actually adopt as is. So like he touched about LES, and I was like, what is actually the source for LES? What is the source for MES? The process that is being developed within the early development phase of the drug product, or drug substance, if you can get there, maybe we can be more digitally savvy. So that's the passion and interest that I was going after. So when I switched my career into product development and drug substance development space, there were some areas that I looked at, and one of them close to heart was this, around paper batch records. We can talk about MES and all that stuff in general, and there are companies that are investing heavily in it. But the fundamental point that everybody looked at is when I actually do the first commercial lot or the first GMP lot for clinical trials, if I'm doing everything on paper, then the first commercial lot will also be on paper. That's the resounding answer that I heard. So keeping that in mind, over the years, in the last one and a half year, we looked at how can I actually move this whole process being paper-free. So that was the rationale behind this whole idea. Today, I'll cover briefly my thoughts around paper-free and also what we actually did in a particular use case around paper batch records, and then how we are evolving from there using AI and LLM. Okay? This is the area that I cover. Like, for those that are not familiar, if you look at a typical product life cycle, these are the stages, and the current space that I cover is, or the team that I support with from a business perspective, is in these 4 areas. We are heavily involved in tech transfer. We do early and late stage development of a product. And then once it is commercial, we also do the support in terms of making sure there are no investigations or less investigations. There's a mission and vision, but I will quickly move to the part. But the main part that we are looking for is how can we transform people's lives as a whole in AbbVie? How can we accelerate innovation for our patients? From the space that I support, we are specifically looking for how can we produce best-in-class products with speed to market, with much more rigor and much more quality. That's the part we were after. How did we look at the journey around paper-free? The 3 pieces, I mean, some of you might have seen it. I have shown this in a previous conference as well, this particular slide. But the notion that we need to go from paper to electronic has been there for a long time. But it is not sufficient. We need to actually become digital. So not just finding your LIMS systems, finding your MES systems is not going to solve the problem. It's actually your mindset around how do you make and how do you digitize your data is the whole point. Like in this AI and LLM world, if you don't have data and it is not contextualized, what are we talking about? Still being on paper. So there is a traditional way that most of us typically tend to work with the vendors and get our solutions in place in the companies. We identify we find some SMEs, define some requirements, and go shop and find a solution. So that's usually the traditional way. Once you do that, do you think there will be a good adoption rate? No. 90% of the time, there is no adoption on it. There will be a system unless you force it like in a QC environment. For a space where I support, if I have to tell them that, hey, you need to put all your stuff in a digital system, the first question I say is, it takes too long, I'm not doing it. So that's why my adoption rate was nosediving in the starting stages. So then we looked at a different way. Okay, so maybe I need to find some different drivers so that they can adopt faster. And then we started showing some sort of benefits for everybody. And then instead of asking them to shoehorn into an existing application, how about I build something for you the way you want it, the way you like it, the way your team would benefit from it. So it's more on, here is a platform, I will customize it for you to your needs so that you can actually adopt seamlessly. That was the thought. Still, it didn't work. We only had 25% adoption rate, and then still there were a lot of complaints, because the biggest complaint I heard is, I do it for you, but what am I getting from it? Probably the actual scientist day in and day out is not actually benefiting from it. So there is no return for them. Maybe there's a return overall in future and also for the leadership and also as a company, but there is no benefit for the actual scientist day in and day out. So then we figured a new approach, saying, okay, what do you benefit from it? So can we start talking about that specific ones? Okay, what are your exact pain points? If I resolve or if I solve that specific pain point, can I get your agreement that you will start using the system? So we went targeted. So we started going after individual scientists, asking them exactly what your pain points are. Okay, now one scientist likes something, the other scientist doesn't like something. So we need to come up with a common consensus. So it's more like a collaboration and working together and identifying something new that works for everybody. So that actually helped us increase our adoption rates to 80%. We were able to actually make an entire lab, start to end, paper-free. And now they started talking to other labs within the space, and then everybody started onboarding to the same or different. So this is a good way of handling at least the experience that I went through from day one when I said, why? It's obvious you use a phone. Why are you still coming to office and trying to use your paper? To where we are today in terms of being 80% adoption rates. Now, I will take one specific example that we went after in this process. There are multiple examples, but one of the specific lab that I wanted to talk about that is related to manufacturing. So that's what I wanted to get there. The problem statement that we had here is there are some manufacturing plants, smaller, and high changeover manufacturing plants within our company that are using paper batch records. And in the roadmap, they have a plan to move to a electronic batch record, but they are not today. And then they have their doubts because of the change they go through and the campaigns that they run. The volume is not there to justify going into a full-blown EBR. So the first thing they asked is, hey, can we have a process on what we will do what we do on paper, but you handle everything else after that? Can you make sure our handwritten paper batch records can be digitized fully? So without us asking or us getting involved in transcribing it. So that was the biggest challenge that was thrown at us. So obviously, we were scouting around, we were talking to people, and Nara from Zifo showed us some tool that he has around master data harmonization. And then I point blank asked him, like, hey, why not? Here is a specific problem I have. Do you have anything in that space? And then he was like, no, not right now, but maybe we can work something out and make it happen. So that's when the whole idea bubbled. That's when we started looking at. So the biggest problem we have is like there are around 600 values, parameters that are required to be collected per batch for a particular biologic that I'm talking about. And there are PhD scientists that are manually transcribing that information from a paper batch record, going into the shop floor, gowning, getting it, scanning it, bringing it to their desk and transcribing it into an Excel spreadsheet. That was the problem statement. And we said, okay, how about you go down, scan, and send it to an email, and we will handle it from there. So that was the overall approach we looked at. And initially it worked great. And the moment we started looking at the details, the accuracy levels were plummeting because the scan was not great. People were not writing properly. It gets reviewed eventually and they'll correct it, fine, but when we actually go to the source, it's not clear. It's not understanding. So I need to go hound people to find out what did you actually write here? Where's the proof? Where's the evidence? And all that stuff. So, and also there is the next problem around QA saying, did you review this data? For reviewing, where's the source document? Go sit at the source document and review it for us. All these things did not go well with us in the overall process. So what we said is, okay, how about we build a tool that can at least remove one piece of the problem. The first piece of the problem is somebody transcribing the information. The second piece is somebody needs to review that information for accuracy. Okay, I cannot solve the accuracy problem. I cannot solve you not being comfortable in relying on the tool. How about I remove the first problem? So in the picture I saw, there are two steps where humans are involved. Our target was to remove the first step, eradicate the human involvement in the first step of data transcription. So we were able to do it. Over a few months, we struggled, we hustled, I guess that's what I should say. And we hustled and we got to that stage where, okay, you scan it, we use the tool, we parse the information. It was close to 80% accurate in the starting stages. And then the person that is reviewing was still involved in that 20% work. We stuck with that, and then we were able to show 20% efficiency for the scientists. And then everybody started showing interest. And then like, hey, I fixed this problem one time. Can it not learn itself and then fix it next time? They were already talking about machine learning, large language modeling, and everything. So I didn't say anything. They started telling to us, like, hey, this is what I want you to do it. So that's when we went through looking at, okay, I mean, high level, the overall process is the paper batch record gets scanned, sent to an email, the tool works on it, parses the information, puts into a visually appealing location, whatever that is, your dashboards, whatever you want to use. Even one step before that, we said, why don't you review in a simple screen where you can see where the value is from the paper batch record, even though it is 2,000 or 200 pages. If I click a value, it will show which page it picked it from. So the review is seamless for the person that is looking at, rather than scrolling through multiple pages. So once we started going that way, now the actual scientist and the reviewers both started working together and helping us achieve this tool. So we were able to get to 80% accuracy levels, and then obviously my team was not satisfied with it. Can we go beyond 80%? Can we go to 90, 95, 99? Now, there is a saying, if you use a digital tool, it should be 100% accurate. If you use a human, it is 90% accurate. So that's the current state. So humans can make mistakes, but machine cannot make mistakes. We don't accept anything. So that's when we had to work with QA a lot and say 95% is okay. We can get to 100%, but not 100% of the time. but as long as it is 95%, it should be okay. Again, to be fair, I was not successful. So that's why we still put human in the loop as a reviewer. But the time the human is spending for doing that review is significantly less when compared with the previous process. So that's where we are today. So this tool is actually in use today. And we have multiple sites within the company. And then everybody started asking, great, I have an electronic batch record, but I have historical data that is still stuck in paper batch records. Can you help? That's where it started floating around. So that's when I felt like there is need for this capability going forward. And even though we move towards electronic batch record everywhere, there might be some plans that might not be going in that direction because of the business requirements, and there is space for this capability. That's what we started. The two tweaks on that is then people started, once they understood the concept, business started coming around saying, hey, I have COA, certificate of analysis for my raw materials. I want that data to be parsed as well. Can you help? So these are the things that started going in. And then when we started looking at COAs, there is one piece around predefining what you're looking for. So in a batch record, I can say I'm looking for these 500 to 600 parameters. But COAs, I have no idea what that is. I don't even know what column we are looking at, what is the name of the parameter that I'm looking at, no idea. So we can have a dictionary and then we can expect to match, but tool was not doing great. The accuracy was plummeting. It went to 40%. And then I was like, okay, nobody will use this. This is not happening. Then ChatGPT concept came up, obviously. So, and then some of our team members said like, hey, why don't we go try that? And then we started looking at some LLM text dictionary-based capabilities. And then we started looking at, instead of predefining the parameters, can I actually let the system itself learn from it? That's what we're working on right now. The POC went great. We actually showed that the accuracy can get back to 95% using an LLM. I don't have it in production yet, but that's what I'm working towards in the next few months. And one thing I'll add to the end is, even before defining that it is for a CFA, it is for a paper batch record, the scope was also being talked about. We have collected all these Excel spreadsheets over the years in development space. Can we actually look at that data as well? And then connect it directly into a data model that we already have. So that's also another use case that came to my table, and then I will be looking at that as well. What's next? So I also, like Margaret said, I also support external and contract manufacturing for our company. That means working with external vendors who are manufacturing for us. And we tried, last 2 years, we tried to negotiate with them and share the data seamlessly for us so they can create something and then I can get access to their LIMS system as an external facing and then download the data. That was the idealistic utopian world that I thought. And then when we started the negotiation, they asked for, why don't you pay for my LIMS system? Why don't you cover the entire cost? Then I'll share the data. That's the conversation it went into. So that's when our company made a decision not to invest anything with the external contract manufacturers and challenged us to find a way. So here, I came back to the same tool again saying, okay, why don't I look at your batch records, whether it's a summarized one or handwritten one, however that is, you're obligated to send me your paper batch records, scanned documents. From there, I'll take care of it. And that's what we are looking at next. So with that, I will add one last statement. Conclusion-wise, imagine big. Don't take a no for an answer, and then keep hustling. That's all my statements. Thank you. Take any question.
Questions? And next.
So I'm done. Oh.
So your slide had you using ChatGPT-4 to do the text. Is that API calls to ChatGPT, or are you hosting your own LLM?
We are hosting. We don't we don't allow OpenAI outside. So it's all internal. So, I mean, we build our own models internally. Yes. Anybody else?
Else?
Have you ever tried optimizing your batch records first before you digitalize them? That's question number one.
I thought that question will come. Yes, we started that process too in parallel, going towards a template-based approach was the idea that we were looking at. But then, if it is a pilot plant or a clinical manufacturing plant, the goal is to change and be change ready rather than going towards a template. So today I want to do a cell-based product production. Tomorrow I want to suddenly change to something else. So the concept of template was not flying well. So there is still value in getting to 60 to 70% template documents, but I didn't feel like it is 100%. It was changing all the time. And we can get to that 70% starting stage, and there were like multiple versions of it after that. So it is still valuable, but it might not be 100%, is where I'm getting at. So we need to be prepared for the 80% or 70% template and then start from there. And the results that they are entering are also different. There are some batch records where they want to write text, not just values. They want to write some explanation, justifications. That's something beyond template that we are talking about. So, but there's still value, but may not be the 100% that you're looking for.
Second question.
Sure.
Yep. Yeah. Fair. Second question is about the review. Yeah.
Yes.
Batch records review.
Yes.
So how do you see AI and electronic batch records help with that? Because
for us,
release times are really long.
Yes. So the biggest hurdle for us is it needs to be GMP ready if I have to use AI. Using AI in a GMP environment, maybe in the next 6 months we'll get there. I don't know. I'm too optimistic on that, but I couldn't convince our QA to remove the human in the loop. So what we were saying is, like, we are all tasked, every person in the company is tasked to be more efficient, right? So how can I be more efficient? If I can rely on the tools as a capability rather than completely removing it. So that's what we were going after. So I can make my reviewers more efficient, but I will not remove them in the process. That's the middle ground I came up with. So, and the AI reliance on GMP is something coming, I guess. We are not there yet. The tool that I showed is a GMP tool, but once I start using LLM, it might not fly. So that's where we will be. Go ahead.
With the success that you're seeing in, I guess, COTs, are you going to go backwards and see if you can get rid of the templates for manufacturing?
That's the idea. That's the plan. We'll see. Oh, go ahead.
So I'm intimately familiar with the struggles you are dealing with.
I'm intimately familiar with the struggles you're dealing with. In fact, I think most of your problems come from people like me. And
Okay, good to know.
I keep you in business.
Okay.
So I think part of it can be actually traced back to like Newtonian times, right? Where the scientist was the center of the universe. I scribbled something on some notebook, and the rest of the world was there to serve the scientist.
Yes.
And conform to, it's not, and now we have to conform to
Somebody
something else, SOPs, etc. But I think one of the things that can solve the current disconnect is at the university level, where most of the folks come from. If these tools and platforms can be initiated there, instead of putting something in a lab notebook, nobody else can read it, for better or worse. I think if that uptake is done at the university level in grad school or postdoc or whatever, I think it'll be much more seamless. Make jobs, make your job in corporate America or worldwide much easier.
True, but the cost needs to be down too, right? So that's the biggest hurdle there as well. Why there is no adoption in academic spaces is because of the implementation cost and the ongoing cost. So the moment they go down, I think the value will be there. So may not be today. Go ahead.
Yeah, when we talk about AIs, do we think that data saturation will be a problem for accuracy? As the more the data it gets, I feel like the more data we get, it's full of errors a lot of times, and the AIs get stupider because of
It
the
hallucinates.
errors.
I mean, stupid is not a good word, but
Well,
it
well, you know what I'm
hallucinates.
saying.
Okay,
The
let's go
accuracy
there.
diminishes.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It hallucinates more, yes.
So how do we mitigate that?
So that's why I'm saying like having a good data model is the base for all of it. I mean, you can expose it with garbage, then it will become useless. So if you have some sort of contextual, clearly documented data model, then yes, it can run. So again, the concept or the idea that, okay, if you expose it to AI, it will solve all my problems. Maybe it will eventually, but not today. So today, pragmatically, we still have the fundamental problem of not having data available in a contextual manner. This is what we keep telling. I know AI, ChatGPT is a buzzword. I know maybe Microsoft might claim something else, or AWS might claim something else. But practically, what I'm seeing in the industry is, if you don't have a good data model, whatever you expose it to has no value. It is not pragmatic.
Just one thing to add to that as well. If you've got your ontology, you can use it to quality check what the GPT or whatever it is, generative AI is chucking out.
There are some options around that. Like if you can go with a standard, like I think ISA 88 ontologies, if you can start there, maybe like everybody starts there, then maybe like somebody said about templates, maybe that is the starting template we should use for context, and then go beyond, build it specific to your needs. That might be a better option. Then we can claim that, okay, at least we are all starting from the same one. As a consortium, we can look at it that way from a pharma perspective. Yeah, maybe it's coming. Maybe we'll make it happen. So, any others? Good. Thank you.